There are over 7,300 condos for sale in Toronto right now. So let that number sink in. 7,323 units, all active, all available. And the big story? A lot of them aren't moving. But what if the issue isn't just price? What if we're building the wrong type of housing for the people who, actually want to live there? We're sitting on record high inventory, but not all condos are created equal. And here's the breakdown. So just over 3,000 of those listings were under 700 square feet. Just under 2,300 are mid-size, 700 to 1,000 square feet, and 1,930 are over 1,000 square feet. And yet, some of those units are still selling at a decent pace. And let's look at March 2025 condo sales volume. So one-bedroom sales dropped from 239 sales in 2024 to 170 this year. Two-bed sales dropped from 675 in 2024 to 513 in 2025. But three-bed sales only saw a small dip from 251 sales in 2024 to 222 this year. So that tells us something critical. People are still buying, but only when the unit fits their life. So maybe this isn't just an affordability issue. Maybe it's a form failure. So what kind of housing actually works in Toronto right now? And why aren't we building more of it? Now, we've been pointing fingers at things like interest rates, prices, and investor pullback. But what if the real culprit is design? So for over a decade, we've built small boxy towers for investors. I mean, you know what it is. 500 square foot, one bedrooms, units with no storage and minimal character, and identical floor plans stacked 40 stories high. But when investors pull out, those buildings don't work for, actual people. Not for couples, not for downsizers, not for families. We optimized for volume, but we forgot about livability. Now, what we didn't build enough of? Mid-rise condos. So think 5 to 8 stories, street-level retail, units with actual space and privacy. These were supposed to line our avenues. Remember that 2010 mid-rise framework? Instead, we got angular planes, long approvals, and an over-reliance on high-rise zoning. We made mid-rise so hard to build that developers almost avoided it altogether, and yet these are exactly the buildings that are still performing today. So let's look at the proof. I chose 3 buildings where people still desire to buy and live. Let's take this mid-rise loft in Briar Hill, 137 units, 5 stories. It's not flashy, but it works. So let's look at the stats. 23 sales since 2022 with an average days on market of 15. 43.5% of those units sold over asking at 103% average sales to list price. And a lot of those units weren't micro. They were livable, and they weren't downtown. They were in neighborhoods with parks, schools, transit, and guess what? A lot of those units were actually over 1,000 square feet, and a lot of those 1,000 square foot plus units are still moving citywide too. And that's not a coincidence. People are craving real space. Now let's look at another example, Corktown District 2. This building, 8 stories, 192 units. It's a soft loft building in one of Toronto's oldest neighborhoods. So the stats here are very similar to the last building. 26 sales since 2022 with an average days on market of just 18. Almost 35% of those units sold for over asking at 102% sales to list price ratio. Now, if we look at our third example, and this is one of my favorite buildings in the city, it's the Madison Avenue Lofts. So 6 stories, 211 units in Casa Loma, built in 2009, but still punching way above its weight. Sales here, again, very similar, 31 sales since 2022. Now, the average days on market sits at 28, but there's a lot of larger units here that sometimes take a little bit longer to sell. But even with that being said, we're still seeing 22.6% sell over asking at 101% selling price to list price. And this building isn't new, but it still outperforms a lot of the other new buildings in the neighborhood because this one was built for people, not spreadsheets. So do you see the pattern? These aren't just units, they're homes. End user focused, family friendly, and most importantly, well integrated into the neighborhood fabric. And when you build like that, the market responds. Okay, so here's the truth. The problem isn't demand, it's design. We're stuck in a system that rewards height, but punishes housing that actually works for people. Now, Toronto has the tools. We've already talked about it. They have the mid-rise zoning guidelines. They have the avenues framework. They have the transit-aligned corridors. But approvals are slow. Builders then hesitate and neighborhoods push back. Meanwhile, families are boxed out. Downsizers can't find livable space in the communities they actually want to live in. And first-time buyers are stuck renting. But let's be real. Mid-rise isn't easy. And there's something that most people don't talk about, and that's that mid-rise is really expensive to build. Even at 6 or 7 stories, developers often need elevators, concrete podiums, underground parking, and full sprinkler systems just like high-rises. And because the sites are smaller, it's harder to spread out those costs. So what's the answer? Now let's look beyond Toronto. In Europe and parts of New York, you'll find 5 and 6 story walk-ups almost everywhere. No elevators, no underground parking, just smart, compact design built to human scale. Now these buildings are easier to construct, quite often cheaper to maintain, and in many cases can last 100 years or more. In fact, if you go back to New York, much of Brooklyn's most desirable housing stock, it isn't even zoned for towers. It's 3 to 5 story walk-ups, and people absolutely love them. Now, materials matter too when we talk about mid-rise construction. So another solution is alternative construction. Building mid-rise out of mass timber or steel framing instead of concrete can reduce costs, speed up construction, and lower the carbon footprint. Ontario actually updated its building code to allow wood frame construction years ago, but with new innovations like CLT, which is cross-laminated timber, and light gauge steel, there's room to safely go higher, even up to 8 stories. These are the kind of materials that let us build more without breaking the bank. Now, we also have to fix the process, not just the product. Right now, if you want to build a mid-rise on an avenue, you're forced to carve it into what looks like almost a pyramid to avoid shading a backyard that might be 2 streets away. So that means smaller units on upper floors, less usable square footage, and less incentive to build. But other cities are rethinking that. Vancouver is expanding as-of-right mid-rise zoning near transit. Montreal allows wider lot coverage and simpler setbacks for 4 to 6 story buildings. And in Tokyo, mid-rise buildings are often the norm, not the exception. And Toronto could do the same. But first, it starts with collaboration. Architects, planners, and developers need to work together to rethink how mid-rise gets built in this city. So that might mean pre-approved design templates or modular mid-rise construction and public land for missing middle housing, or, and this is a big one, tax incentives for boutique density near transit. Because mid-rise is more than just a form, it's a philosophy. It's about building homes that feel like they belong to the block. Homes you pass every day and say, man, I could live there. Mid-rise condos and large units are 2 sides of the same story. They both represent a shift back toward end-user housing. Homes for families, downsizers, professionals, people with real lives, not just portfolios. And if we want a Toronto that works for more people, we don't need more skyline. We need human-scale housing that fits our blocks and our budgets. Now, if you're trying to make sense of all this, and if you're trying to find your own mid-rise unit in the city of Toronto, whether you're buying, investing, or just curious, check out my brokerage's website, Valery. Its AI-powered home evaluation and search tools gives you a quick, smart snapshot of what your home is worth or what you might be looking for based on actual market data and not guesswork. There's a QR code right here. Scan that, or there's a link down below. And if this video resonated, drop a building or brick down in the comment. Tell me what kind of housing you wish you had more of, because we're not just talking real estate, we're talking revolution. So as always, I'm Josh. This is Under the Radar Real Estate, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.